Here.
For bridges, do we use pins or rollers on the foundations?
What are you asking?
Pins or rollers?
No, but what are you asking me to, like, to me? Anybody? What's your question? What's your question?
Do we use pins or rollers?
Pins or rotors?
Or rotors?
They use the pin.
Remind me what's a rotor? The rotor is the, that it rotates,
The
right?
one that has used
Yeah.
one force and the y-axis.
To what?
The force is y-axis.
So if they use the roller, it's here.
It's a rotor, not
So
rotor.
it's roll it out because the
What's the roller?
pin are making like the connection between the this cable. So it will not roll it out, and at the end there is an anchoring that's gonna be a work for that because that's going from top to the come to the bottom. They don't have it anything like very less force. So all the force is transferred from their anchoring. If they use the roller, then the anchoring will move ahead. So they have to use, in this case, they have to use a pin. So it can be more stable, like more stable. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Is there any like general maintenance for any type of bridge, like repainting or the bolts to make sure they don't rust out?
And like I said before, suspension bridges, one of the advantages for them is that you don't have to succumb to restoring it. You mean the process of restoring, right? Because
Yeah,
materials, they
yeah.
tend to rust and stuff like that. With suspension bridges, you don't really have to worry about that because you have two forces suspending the object. Remember, suspension bridges, the purpose of it is to include one more, a force to cancel that out, so that there could be more load, So, therefore, that's why people, all you gotta do really is go to, do checkup and stuff like that. You don't really have to go through a process of restoring it.
I have a very easy question. How many more people would it have taken on top of the 800,000 for the building?
To actually collapse.
Yeah.
Honestly, I honestly don't know because as a civil engineer, you wanna really exaggerate, exaggerate as much as possible and be, in a sense, you actually have to be creative because you gotta be all right. What if an earthquake happens? What if a tornado happens? What if, or we're in New York? What if an earthquake happens? What if New York? What if a flood happens? You gotta be really creative and exaggerate every single possible thing that can actually happen. And as a civil engineer, you wanna exaggerate really. That's why Joseph, he was such a smart engineer because he said, all right, let's do suspension bridges, which by the way wasn't even common in those days. If I'm not mistaken, the last one, I was gonna add this into the slide. The reason why I didn't add this is we had to, it's 10 minutes, but it was the last suspension bridge was actually in 18 something, right? And it wasn't done again, right? So he said, let's do suspension bridges because make a suspension bridge because the margin of error is more wider. Like when the 800,000 people were there, it rotated, vertically and horizontally. And the engineers, they were like, oh, nothing's gonna happen because the margin of error is so wide, So I'd say, I don't know, maybe 1 million people could have been there,
So now, I have a question. I'll start with Joe. That when we talk about the cost effectiveness of the suspension, you said that it's more cost effective compared with other businesses.
I say you have to pick your poison because it's inexpensive to build. Materials are pretty inexpensive. However, it takes long to build. So
Yeah, it takes a longer time
So
to build it.
pick your poison. It's gonna be expensive either way. Yeah, the materials don't cost that much, but you're gonna take a long time building it. So the quality.
So well,
it's gonna cost
if we talk about the other type of bridge that is supported by pillars, the other type of bridges are like you have pillars in
Instead
every,
of the suspension,
Instead-
that's
instead of
the
suspension.
concept, yeah.
instead of it.
the other type is you have pillars, and on the pillars you have the bridge, like the what do you
That's
call
the George
it?
Washington Bridge. That's one of them like
Is
that.
is it like that?
Yeah, is it like that?
George Washington Bridge, I think, is a suspension bridge.
No,
I think.
yeah, it'd be like the.
All of
It has a, the Brooklyn Bridge is a suspension bridge.
Brooklyn Bridge.
The
is
Brooklyn, actually, the
suspension, yeah.
company that did the suspension bridge of the art bridge, they did that. They're the ones who helped out, the one that implemented, so.
Yeah, but there are bridges, I know that, you
Yeah.
know, where you put pillars in every few meters, all right,
Mm-hmm.
to support the road, not the cable.
Okay.
Okay, not the cable. What is the major advantage, do you think, of the suspension bridges over those kind of bridges?
It has to be honestly, it has to be the margin of error, because really, safety is paramount, because obviously, you wanna, suspension bridges are nice, you know, aesthetically speaking, they're nice, they have, that's another advantage, they just look more appealing. You know, however, you know, really the safety of the people is paramount, you know, you don't want, like, a traffic jam and then it collapse, you know.
But why those other type of bridges
Uh-huh.
are more collapse prone to traffic jam or the other things compared to, why do you think so?
Okay, because, like I said before,
And when you say the margin of error,
mhm.
what do you mean exactly by that? I mean, if you answer that, I think that will
Alright, you asked me
answer the
three
question.
questions, alright, so.
No, I mean, that will answer my other questions.
Alright, so you're asking three questions,
automatically.
alright, so I'll start with the first one. The reason why, suspension bridges are preferable than ones that are just pillars is because you're adding more support, that's basically what it is, like, you know, say if you have this, like, say this is the bridge, right? And then, okay, I'm supporting it from the bottom. Okay, let's support it from the top too. Now you have two factors supporting it. So therefore, it makes it more supportable, more safe. Now, not only that, but the margin of, the second question, the reason why I say the margin of error is essential, is more wider, is because the cables are not rigid. So like they move, they fluctuate. But at the same time, they're made a specific way. It's a process called parallel cable something, that they do a specific process that, okay, it's rigid, but at the same time it's strong. So, like, it's flexible, and
Okay, so if you think from that point of view, then what is the disadvantage of the pillar-based bridges? You're on the right track. You answered half of my question.
Alright, so now you ask me, what's the disadvantage of the pillar without?
From that same perspective, that you said the cables are flexible.
Disadvantage would be the elimination of the suspension of the bridge, of the suspension of it. That would be the
Yeah,
disadvantage.
so basically, when you have the suspension bridge, right, then the cables are flexible, all right, and the bays are at the end, so in the middle you have a swinging part, okay, which can move and can adjust itself, right, like a cradle, right? Okay.
Although.
But if you have pillars, concrete pillars or metallic pillars, they cannot adjust. So when the same type of swinging will occur, okay, for whatever reason, wind or for seismic reason or for for some very weird type of traffic reason, those will have cracks. The pillars will have cracks. Okay, so you'll see that the suspension bridges sustain for longer time. The Golden Gate Bridge is there for now about 90 years,
Oh, 90 years.
almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost 90 years there, some 85, 87 years now, okay? And it is still there, I mean, it looks like it will start for another 100 years.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to add one more thing, because although its advantage is that it's flexible, it also can be a disadvantage. Because I put it in a disadvantage, but I didn't divide it into 3 columns. But it can be, honestly, like, it's not a rigid, so if it pulls too much, you know, vertically, I mean horizontally or vertically, and it sways so much, you know, basically what's gonna happen is that eventually it's gonna collapse, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
that is true, but that's
Yeah.
true for other type of bridge as well, and
True.
much faster.
Sure.
And just another piece of trivia, when it was completed, it was the longest suspension bridge in the whole world. So it
it was already like kind of ambitious, making it a bridge across that wide gap, and
Mhm.
also the fact that it was a suspension bridge,
Yeah.
which would require an acute.
Yeah.
Strauss was crazy.
Yeah.
So, you said that the margin of error is greater, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't that work both positive and negative? Like, what if the margin of error was in the negative favor?
What if the margin of error was in a negative favor? You mean like what if it's like
I think you already answered that.
yeah, like basically, like, yeah, the blessing is also a curse at the same time because, yeah, the margin of error is good, it's flexible, that means that and there's more room there's wiggle room, but the thing is that, like, that same, blessing can be a curse because what if, and the engineers have to ask that question, what if, like, okay, a strong, earthquake comes and then now it's like, fluctuating so hard because you imagine, look at it this way, like,
Okay, let me pick it up from, because, we have to go, it's 11, 20 already, right? But let me quickly wrap up his question, his answer, is that when you have, large margin of error, the negative side of that is this, that when you have this, flexibility goes beyond the breaking level, breaking point, all right? If you think about the elasticity, you study elasticity in physics, what? Remember that, in elastic car, in the Hooke's law, there's a line within elastic zone and then it goes to plastic zone and then goes to breaking level. When it reaches this breaking point, it will collapse.
So the tension is
Too much on it. So obviously that is true for any system. It's true for any system. And the major advantage of these type of suspension bridges is this, that when you have load pulling down, it means when the forces are pulling down the bridge, then the bridge is, if it collapses, it is prone to collapse inside. But the cables, can you go to the picture of the Golden Gate Bridge? So you see that if you look at the system, here are the two major pillars. And you see heavy structures here. So they are kind of, holding it like upward. So if it tears from the middle, it will open like this. It will not collapse inside. All right? It will not collapse inside. And so, if in case suppose you have all vehicles here, it breaks here, it will open like this. The cars and all the trucks, they'll slide down to this side. Instead of dropping inside. Few of them will drop inside the ocean, but most of them will slide down.
You're saying that's a good thing.
Hmm?
You're saying
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
That will save more life.
Right. Wow.
Okay? Or that will be more helpful towards the rescue people to help those who are in trouble. Okay? Yeah. And this is one important thing, that you have heavier structure here so that you have this. If you put a rod across, there's a nice picture in the document that I gave you, that you put books, two books standing, and then you put cables, and then you hang. You will see that how it is hanging.
Yeah.
And if you make a good support here, that support will lift the pencil up, despite the fact the pencil is putting a force downward. But if you put a support from the bottom, take the support out, the pencil will drop. Okay? Here, you take the support out, this load on the outer side will pull the pencil up. Okay? Yeah. Anyway, I have to ask other questions. Actually, I was to ask this question, but I answered the question. Yeah, overexcited. But then, can you tell me that how these vertical cables are helping us?
No, it was the right.
Just go back.
It was the right picture.
So one slide for the.
So, vertical, that's
The vertical cables.
Oh, he's right here.
that's cable.
He's right here like this. On,
Yeah. So,
Why there are so many vertical cables? That's let me put it in that.
so So because like the vertical cables are more, so it's like when it goes to the down, there is a low, there is a there is a less force on that, and also they are just giving the
Less force means, or less force on what?
less force on these cables.
Each of the cable.
Yeah, each of the cable and upper side also, because it goes all
Okay,
to
yeah.
the end range.
Yeah, that's the major reason, that you
Yeah,
distribute
so
the force
it
as
goes
much as possible.
distribute the force like this way, and it goes to the down. There is a heavy end range, and there's a construction.
Mhm.
So it's like it distributed, but at the end, they just goes to the force like this way. So
Mhm.
as you told, if it's collapsed, it just goes that way.
Mhm.
It doesn't go to the inside.
Okay, Charlie, you did, which part you did, I forgot.
Did loads.
Loads, can you go to those slides? All right. So you say, oh, yeah, you talked about the live and the dead loads on the bridge. Now, these 800,000 people, right? Or 80,000 people? How many were there?
In the 800,000.
800,000? 800,000 people were there, celebrating the 50th anniversary. Were they dead or live loads? I mean, I know they're live people, but were they
That's
live
a
loads or
trick
dead
question,
loads?
that's a trick question.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Well, it can be like both, I think. No,
How
not
they can be
dead.
both? That's a very good answer.
So,
but,
I have
explain.
for example, let me see, the dynamic loads, and it says that it's everything that, like vibrations and like the other weight and extra stuff that the bridge has to like face. So I think that could be one because, those people are not there every day. And they make this, that's called the reading room, and this allows the bridge to move without like, without like collapsing. So I think that can be like that dynamic load and also like a live load because people are moving and probably, walking through the bridge and stuff like that.
Okay, so they're not dead loaded.
No, I don't think
They're
there's,
not dead loaded at all.
because, I mean, probably
Now,
because like so many
okay, so
people.
you made them together a dynamic load and live load.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the difference between dynamic and live load?
So like I said, the live load is like with the, the engineers are expecting, let's say like that, like certain like amount of people or cars going through the bridge, right?
Mhm.
And dynamic load, it's more like the weather, the vibrations, like stuff that doesn't happen every day,
Okay.
So
Alright.
these people just
So that takes this question down, I will extend this question towards Chal. Is this, that when we talk about the dynamic load, when you talk about vibration of the bridge, okay? And then mostly that is due to wind, all right? Because